Finally, Ukraine is attacking Putin's military facilities with long-range missiles, ATACMS Storm Shadows, on the territory of the aggressor country, while the Russian dictator Putin has sunk to the bottom and is preparing some strikes and updating the nuclear doctrine. Who is afraid of whom now? Is the West afraid of Putin, or is Putin afraid of the West? Let's try to figure it out right now. My name is Yuri Rashkin, and today with us is Yuri Rashkin, host of YouTube channel Rashkin Report, communication instructor at the University of Wisconsin, and a county supervisor in Rock County, Wisconsin. Yuri, hello, glad to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Irina. Always glad to see you. Thank you for the invitation, and Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава. Thank you, Yuri. Ukraine has likely used Storm Shadow long-range missiles for the first time on Russian territory. The target may have been an object with an underground command post of the Russian Federation, according to Defense Express, our military experts on Kursk region. And such beautiful video keep us and make us happier than never. Additionally, I remind that on November 19, our sources told about the first use of ATACMS missiles to strike Russia, the Ukrainian armed forces targeting a site in the Bryansk region. So, Yuri, how important and effective was Biden's decision to authorize long-range weapon strikes on Russia, and how will this authorization undermine Putin's plan for a long-term war?
I think it is fair to accept that everything that is happening right now is likely to be temporary in its nature, because at least the direction of the United States foreign policy is likely to change dramatically with the new administration. And so what we're seeing right now is an attempt, and perhaps a successful one, by the Biden administration to create a sense of a strategic uncertainty, where it is really not clear what is going to happen. And theoretically, for a negotiating partner, that creates a lot of opportunity in a sense that the new administration, new incoming administration, will have a lot of choices and a lot of options considering what Biden administration has done. At the same time, we see a very negative reaction to this from the incoming, well, actually not from Trump administration, but from Donald Trump Jr., who was very clear about his opinion about this, because realistically, this is what Donald Trump was campaigning on, is the threat of World War III and the threat of nuclear war with Russia, in the sense that he's the only one who can make a deal and find an agreement point with Vladimir Putin. So in that vein, this is obviously complicating the situation for such an approach. But it seems that for a variety of reasons, whether it is because there's 50,000 North Korean soldiers and Russian soldiers amassing on the border or whatever, getting ready to move forward and into Ukraine, perhaps to reclaim the Kursk territory, the Kursk area. And with that, it may be one of the reasons, because those landmines, scattered artillery that is provided can be something that can help stop or slow down massive amounts of troops moving forward. So this can be, frankly, a short-term solution for a long-term problem. And that is part one. And when we look at ATACMS and those long-range weapons and what they're capable of doing, it appears that they're able to do a severe damage in an area. And Russia is a very large area. And getting all of that area with the limited amount of ATACMS seems unrealistic, at the same time as it is continuous insult to Vladimir Putin that this continues to occur. And this is why I think everybody was in the Biden administration being risk averse and escalation averse that they generally have shown themselves to be. They were concerned that these types of decisions and actions by United States giving permission to Ukraine with the understanding that this is not just Ukraine that is using these rockets, but there's U.S. intelligence being involved and other perhaps operational help, whatever that may be. With that, all of that in mind, the direction that this is moving is insulting to Putin because it is attack on his territory. And in what is his answer? If his answer is that there's a nuclear strike, then this is what the West was worried about. But it seems perhaps Ambassador McFaul is absolutely correct when he suggested that it is the time after the election was lost and Kamala Harris lost to Donald Trump, that is the time for President Biden to give Ukraine permission to use long-range weapons, because Putin would be reluctant, if not likely to do anything, knowing that in 2 months he will have a new administration to contend with. And those are choices that are being worked through in the Biden administration, and that we are, watching and observing through media reports and government accounts. And that is a wonderful thing to have. It is a government that has the transparency and lets you know what's going on, and a press that lets you know what's going on. I just can't tell you how much I'm thrilled to have those things in our country.
Yuri, you mentioned about the North Korean troops on Russian territory involved in Russian war against Ukraine. So in your opinion, is the North Korea now afraid to give to Kremlin dictator more troops? Because according to Bloomberg, which reported a few days ago, the North Korea prepared 100,000 new soldiers to give them to Putin. Does this plan destroy now?
I think it is fair to understand that cannon fodder has a price per pound, perhaps. And so the same way that Russian people were recruited in abundance until apparently the abundance has ended for a fistful of dollars, so can the North Koreans, except the North Koreans don't have to be recruited. They can just be purchased. And it appears that Putin has worked out a deal, and whatever money that's involved. And there's already questions whether he actually is going to get all that he has paid for. But that is the situation that media is writing about at this point in the West. And I think that is fair to accept that there are resources that dictators and authoritarian leaders will use from each other, whether it is arms, whether it is people, the extent to which these things can be purchased and exchanged, and apparently in a way to defeat a democracy. It is incredible to what extent authoritarian leaders are willing to work together, all to defeat a democracy.
You mentioned about Donald Trump younger and about Donald Trump in general, but Donald Trump didn't mention anything these days about Biden's permission, and Bloomberg reported that Biden did Trump a favor with U.S. missiles in Ukraine. Donald Trump will soon negotiate with Vladimir Putin about Ukraine. We think about it, Bloomberg thinks about it, and Joe Biden just gave Trump another bargaining chip, writes Bloomberg. Why is Trump silent and doesn't comment about the permission to strike with long-range weapons? And did he know? How do you think about this Biden's decision?
Well, it is fair to acknowledge that Donald Trump has more than once said that he has very good relations with Vladimir Putin. So I would imagine when American weapons are striking Russia, then probably it affects his relationship with Vladimir Putin, who must not be very happy with America at the moment. So I can see where Donald Trump may not want to say anything at the moment. I think he has much better control over things that he says than he's often given credit for. And the fact that his oldest son, Donald Trump Jr., is saying things that he is a way to kind of further highlight the management style of President-elect Trump, where he doesn't necessarily say explicitly what it is that he wants, as much as his intentions are clear and other people find a way to make it happen. And I think in this case, his son is merely saying things that I'm sure he thinks his father would want to hear. Because if why would he say things that his father would not want to hear? That wouldn't make any sense. So I presume that this is information that is being released, and Russia has kind of a familiar setup where there's Putin, who is pretty quiet, and then there's, let's say, maybe Medvedev, who is very loud and says things. We don't know if it's actually him saying it, but whatever. But it's like a mouthpiece. And in this instance, it's entirely possible that there will be other people who will be these kinds of messengers of the administration's and the leader's vision.
Can Trump cancel this decision of Biden's administration about permission with long-range missiles?
I think that is entirely expected, that the new incoming administration will look for every way to probably regain their good relations with Vladimir Putin. And that means that they will have to stop aid to Ukraine. Now, it is possible that this will be as part of a negotiating technique between the Trump administration and with Kremlin. But so far, there's no reason to expect Putin to follow through with any agreement. Therefore, whatever things that a new administration may offer just may not have the effect that is desired. And then what? So I think it is both possible that aid to Ukraine will stop, and it is possible that the war will continue. And that is probably the worst possible situation. Although it is possible that I hope that we do not find ourselves in a position where we're providing Russia with weapons via Lend-Lease program, which would be historically, sadly, ironic. But I think that there's just expected a very strong change of direction with the new administration, and it is fair to acknowledge that.
But these days and even these weeks, we didn't hear anything about new Trump's plan about Russian-Ukrainian war and about negotiations with Putin. Why? Maybe will they present all their clear plans after inauguration?
The situation, it appears to be that there is a person whose job it is to work this out somehow. And this gentleman's name is Boris Epstein, who is a close advisor of Donald Trump, such a close advisor that he has already apparently has been raised ire of Elon Musk, who is not, perhaps clear about why Mr. Epstein is so close to Mr. Trump and has such impact on the positions that are being filled within the administration, the very top tiers of the administration, people who are like gatekeepers to the president. This is a person that has been apparently assigned to work out a deal with between Russia and Ukraine. This is a man who came to the United States as a child, similarly to myself. And unlike me, he became an attorney and became a confidant and a close advisor to Donald Trump. He speaks fluent Russian, and therefore, whatever negotiations, I presume he speaks fluent Russian. I actually don't know, but I presume he speaks fluent Russian, and therefore will be able to ensure that there is perfect clarity in the negotiations, as perhaps the interpreters will not be needed. Who knows? But it appears to be part one of the process in which, as these negotiations may or may not work out, it will be something that will be give President Donald Trump perhaps an opportunity to distance himself from the outcome by pointing to somebody else who was responsible for this or didn't do their job or whatever may have happened. This way, the President Trump is not incoming elect, is not directly involved in negotiations, not directly communicating with Putin per se, until there is something to be agreed on, because maybe it perhaps wouldn't be good to meet when things are not good. Again, for those good relations to be, things have to be happening according to both of these sides that are considered good. So it may take a while. But essentially, there is work being done by Trump administration to end, if not the war, then perhaps the war, find a peace solution, which may or may not work. And with understanding that it may or may not work, it seems like there's people involved, such as Mr. Epstein, in trying to address this, that would create perhaps an opportunity to shift blame elsewhere should this not work out in the end.
Yuri, we thought yesterday with our Michael Shettelman, political strategist, that maybe this person who will present Trump on question about Russian-Ukrainian war, special person, may be Boris Johnson. Maybe can we be right? How do you think? He's close to Trump, and last few days he presents a lot of different plans and steps which will help Ukraine to win in Russian-Ukrainian war.
Considering that there's recently a quote that I've read from Boris Johnson, different Boris, saying that there's a certain faction, if I can remember correctly, of Republican Party that has a strange homoerotic fascination with Putin, which he does not subscribe to, is what Boris Johnson said. So I don't see that person as playing an important role in the Trump administration. What we see over and over very clearly is that there is a gradation of people that are invited to be part of the administration. There's certain things that are expected. And support of Ukraine is never a good sign to join the new incoming administration, which is why we see that Nikki Haley or Mike Pompeo, or think of anybody else who may think that it is in our national interest to support Ukraine, and see whether how far they are away from being in this administration. So I think that that's just a part of what we're expecting, and it's entirely possible. I mean, it's as President Biden said, he's leaving a good foundation for the future should the country choose to use it or build on it or something to that effect. And he will leave clearly a lot of different options on the table for the new incoming administration. How they will take advantage of those choices, what decisions, what priorities they will have, we can only be concerned about, but hopeful. As they say, hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
So we mentioned about Putin dictators, and we don't understand why he's silent too and keeps silence these days, but we think that he's afraid. But he renewed his nuclear doctrine on the end of September it was, and yesterday he subscribed this new project about new nuclear doctrine, and the New York Times reported that for Russia, nuclear weapons are the ultimate bargaining chip. The Ukrainian war has not only shattered millions of lives and shaken Europe, it also has inured Washington to the use of nuclear threats as leverage. So really, Putin updated the nuclear doctrine. How high does the US assess the risks of Putin's use of nuclear weapons now?
Apparently not that high, because it chose to give Ukraine permission to use those long-range ATACMS. I think that's one way to kind of summarize it. I'm just continuously impressed by the desire of Kremlin to follow the letter of the law that it writes itself as needed. So it is in compliance with the law that it created for itself, just like it wanted to, but it's in compliance. It's very interesting approach, and it speaks of the general desire of Putin to reach this separation of world into spheres of influence. This is what Yalta Agreement was about at the end of World War II, and this is what Putin's been talking about for well over a decade. This desire to split the world into areas and spheres of influence, kind of a Yalta II. And at this point, it seems that the only thing that is standing between him and that dream coming together is the 2 months of this administration. This is a very important time for President Biden to show because how he wants history to remember him. At this point, it seems that the consensus at the moment in American media journalism is that his legacy has been stained beyond repair because his administration is to be succeeded by a Republican administration, and not just any Republican administration, by a Trump administration, not just any, but second Trump administration. So this says very negative things about popularity of things that President Biden was able to do because he was not reelected. There's a lot of questions and details, but this is the time that President Biden has left. And so it is interesting to see also that President Zelensky has taken upon himself, has the strength to continue using these brazenness, perhaps, to use these weapons when son of the next U.S. president said not to do it. So I think that speaks of a certain fortitude presented by President Zelensky, which I think is once again looks pretty impressive, regardless whether this is effective or ineffective, right or wrong. This certainly, I feel, sends a message of a certain amount of strength.
Vladimir Putin is open to discussing a Ukraine ceasefire deal with Donald Trump, but rules out making any major territorial concessions and insists Kyiv abandon ambitions to join NATO, 5 sources with knowledge of Kremlin thinking told Reuters. And this evening we saw that Russia creates crazy, mad, nutty, I don't know even which word are available here, for division of Ukraine to 3 parts, and may offer it to USA to Donald Trump. How crazy is this plan, in your opinion, and why should Trump consider such nutty plans?
Somehow it seems that maybe appearance of this plan is a response to attackums and part of the escalation and part of showing that perhaps there's room for negotiation, except we know that Vladimir Putin doesn't follow the agreements. But it does appear to be a concession on his part, because up until now, he was not interested in negotiations, and everybody else had a plan. Erdogan had a plan. Everybody had a plan. But now Vladimir Putin apparently has some kind of a vision forward as well, if only he could be trusted. And so this is it is revealing, because long term he is planning on getting rid of Ukraine. But long term, considering that we're looking at nuclear threat, according to Russia on a minute by minute basis, then maybe long term threats are not as relevant. The American people have spent so much time saving environment and working to save the environment. The new incoming administration may, nullify a lot of those efforts, and we'll see how things go. But sometimes worrying about long term and forgetting about short term can have very drastic long term consequences.
Yuri, we'll see. We have a lot of questions and problems to discuss in our future conversations. Thank you for today's speech. Thank you for our conversation. See you later. Be careful of yourself. Goodbye.
Be careful as well. Thank you, Irina.
Bye. Yuri Rashkin, host of YouTube channel Rashkin Report, communication instructor at the University of Wisconsin, was with us, with me, Irina UZLOVA. Thank you guys for viewing. Subscribe to our YouTube channels, please, and keep calm about all these questions. We will discuss it next time. Goodbye.